Man, what's going on, everybody? It's still alive back with another one. And for y'all, I don't know how much of you guys take stuff like this serious. And growing up in the country, like I always thought about it, like what would happen if the end of the world happened. But now that I'm getting older and stuff, it's stuff that I've really been thinking about more. And not necessarily like the world ending, but like just having enough stuff around to where like I don't necessarily have to depend on going to the grocery store and stuff like that as much. I'm starting my own garden and all that shit, and just getting stuff around solar generators and backup propane and all kinds of lanterns, batteries, backup food for 25 years and stuff like that. And it's stuff that I've really started to get into and prepping and trying to get more and more. And I plan on getting like a shelter of some sort eventually and stuff like that. And it's something that I've started to get into more now that I'm getting older again. And this is a video that I seen pop up, and I thought it was something cool that we could all watch, something different than my normal channel stuff that I watch.
Gotten off to a pretty rough start. Tensions at home are high, everyday people are struggling, and we've seen signs that conflicts throughout the world could spread. Because of that, being prepared is more important than ever, and one of the best ways to do that is by stockpiling essential items. Doing that will help ensure that you and your loved ones have what you need when stores close, supply chains collapse, or even if you just feel a little safer by staying at home. The first thing that we should all be stockpiling in 2026 should surprise absolutely no one, and that's food. For this, you want to invest in things that can be stored for a long time, keep you healthy, and give you options when everything falls apart. Even though dry goods tend to dominate lists like these, canned goods are a great thing to stockpile because they combine a long shelf life with everyday convenience. They're fully cooked, safe to eat straight out of the can, and packed with the vitamins and minerals that you may not be able to get anywhere else. Canned vegetables like peas, beans, and corn will give you vitamin A, potassium, and fiber, all of which are important for keeping your energy up and your digestive system working. Then tomatoes are incredibly versatile. They're used in chili, stews, and pasta sauces, and corn, carrots, and peas can be incorporated into skillet meals or casseroles. But one of my favorite canned foods is canned meat and fish. They give you a way to stockpile a shelf.
See, canned foods is something that I really don't look into too much of. Like, I got some stuff like that stockpiled, not so much of this type of shit, but like more along the lines of like me being able to sustain myself. Like, I'm trying to get a big ass garden. I'm getting fruit trees planted. Like, I'm getting like a grapevine going. You know what I mean? I'm getting my gardens going and stuff like that. And then also having storage put up for like big tanks of propane and stuff, because gas goes bad but propane lasts for a long time, and you can have propane generators and propane doesn't go bad. So like, and then just a lot of other things like that too, and solar generators and solar powered stuff, and just kerosene lanterns with plenty of kerosene around, and just, yeah, all that type of stuff, because I also live in the country so I can always go get meat too.
Stable source of protein and fat that could be very hard to get otherwise, especially in a longer term disaster. Tuna, chicken, salmon, sardines, and roast beef are all good options. You can use them to make a wide variety of dishes, ranging from simple soups all the way to full meals. Then canned fruit can be used for a lot more than just desserts. Peaches, pears, and pineapple all contain a ton of vitamin C, and they're good sources of potassium and fiber, and because they're sweet, they can serve as an instant morale booster. Then, of course, dry goods are still important. They're used
Facts,
in
facts.
virtually every meal or dish that you can imagine, and they give you a lot of bang for your buck. As I've talked about before numerous times on this channel, white rice can last for 20 years or more if stored in a properly sealed Mylar bag with oxygen absorbers, serves as the backbone of stir fries,
Or
soups.
as long as it's vacuum sealed and stuff like that, yeah, it can be up to like 20, 25 years. But I'm also buying a lot of like the freeze dried stuff too, like the survival stuff, like the buckets that are like a month supply that's good for like 20, 30 years. Like, I'm gonna have all kinds of shit stored up, ready to go. Like, I'm finna have I want to get a whole shipping container that's like a survival thing and everything. So
Casseroles, and of course rice pudding. It's also a universal food since it's gluten-free, easy to digest, and is a good source of energy. Next, we have dry beans, including pinto and black beans. These will give you fiber, iron, and complex carbs, and when you combine them with rice, they form a complete protein, which means that you get all the essential amino acids that your body needs. Like rice, they're an essential part of numerous dishes, including the Mexican food that me and my family love so much. But one dry good that doesn't get nearly the attention that it deserves is peas. They have more protein, fiber, and micronutrients than many types of beans, and they also have a sweeter taste. Then, pasta is cheap, can last for decades if stored properly, and is easy to cook. It pairs perfectly with canned
Okay.
tomato sauce,
I
a
didn't know
sprinkle of
that.
dried herbs, or even just olive oil and garlic. Pasta delivers carbs for energy, and whole wheat versions add more fiber and nutrients. It can also be baked into casseroles or tossed into soups to make a meal go a little further, and you can get it in gluten-free varieties if you or someone in your family has celiac disease or other gluten sensitivities. While
Even if you're somebody who doesn't necessarily live in the country and have their own land, who can kinda, I'm trying to eventually get where I have my own well and own chickens and all that stuff where, like, if you can't do that, you could still prep and live in the city and have enough stashed up to where you can live, you know what I mean? Like, have enough food and storage and generators and stuff like that stored to where you can live for several months without needing anything.
oats are another good option since they give you soluble fiber for heart health and steady blood sugar, plus iron and a touch of protein. They can be used in porridge, granola, meatloaf filler, or even as a thickener in soups. After that's core baking ingredients. Those can include flour, sugar, salt, oil, yeast, baking powder, and baking soda. They're used to make bread, biscuits, tortillas, and even pancakes. Some of these, like salt and sugar, can be stored indefinitely, but others, like flour and cornmeal, will only last for around 3 years or so, even if they're stored in mylar. Because of this, you'll want to stay on top of rotating them to make sure that none of it goes bad. A way around this, though, at least for flour, is to store unground wheat berries. These have a much longer shelf life, but you will need a grain mill to process them into flour.
Yeah.
Then you also want to have other things like powdered milk, evaporated milk, and freeze-dried eggs since they're used in a lot of baked foods and they'd be hard to get a hold of during a long-term disaster. After that's peanut butter and other nut butters, and these are nearly a perfect survival
Is this
food.
all
They're
food
calorie
then?
dense and have a ton of protein and good fats. The only real downside to them
No.
is that their shelf lives are measured in months rather than years, so you will need to stay on top of rotating them. But whether you spread them on bread, mix them into oatmeal, or just eat them by the spoonful, they'll fill you.
See, they're giving you a lot of types of food like this, but you can also just stock up on hell of the stuff that's good for 25 to 30 years and just stock up on that type of stuff and have so much of it around where they come in buckets or big containers of different types of meals and freeze-dried meals that are already good for 25 to 30 years.
Up fast and help keep morale up. Then protein bars, jerky, and powder protein are all good to have. Jerky's nice since it requires zero preparation, while protein powder can be added to shakes, oatmeal, or even baked goods to help boost nutrition. But then don't forget about comfort foods. They'll help life feel a little more normal and can make things taste a whole lot better. Coffee and tea are natural stimulants and can help you stay alert, and even though it doesn't taste as good, instant coffee can be stored for decades using mylar bags with oxygen absorbers. Then you can combine cocoa powder with some sugar and powdered milk to make hot chocolate, and that can be a big deal on cold nights or when you just need a little pick-me-up. After that, spices and dry herbs like pepper, garlic powder, Italian seasoning, and bouillon cubes will let you turn plain rice and beans into a meal that you'll actually want to eat. Bouillon adds flavor to soups and can
Facts.
help keep your
Okay.
sodium up if you're sweating a lot during summer or doing a lot of physical work. But even though I don't recommend using these as the backbone of your long-term food storage, freeze-dried meals work really well during evacuations or for times that you just can't cook. They are expensive, but they also have very long shelf lives. Most only need hot water, so they're a decent backup if your main.
See, this is more of an MRE too. There's all types of freeze-dried meals where you can get freeze-dried fruit and stuff like that, and you just put it in the water and then it comes back out. There's all types of different stuff, MREs and all.
Pantry runs low or if you lose access to utilities. But the bottom line is that if you don't have clean water, then all the food storage in the world isn't going to do you a bit of good. While most healthy people can survive for at least a few weeks without food, the human body can only last for a few days without water. That doesn't even take into account that most foods require at least some water to prepare, the main exception to that
Facts.
being most canned goods. But every person in your home will need, at a bare minimum, 1 gallon of water per day for drinking. But there's also hygiene and environmental concerns to think about too. You'll need at least some water to help you stay clean, some for cooking, and if you live in a hot climate, drinking just 1 gallon per day may not be enough. But the foundation for any prepper's water plan should be water stored at your home, and there are a few different ways to stockpile it. First, there's bottled water. Even though it's not my preferred method because
Yeah.
of the cost and the presence of microplastics, it is cheap, sealed against outside contamination, and is easy to rotate. But storing an entire month's supply of water for an entire family using bottled water would take up a ton of space. Larger
Facts,
containers, though,
facts.
make this a lot easier. Portable containers like aquatainers, water bricks, and military water cans will store anywhere between 3.5 and 7 gallons each, can be stored wherever you have space, and are easy to load up and take with you if you need to bug out. Then larger containers like barrels and IBC totes can hold a lot more and are great options if you own your own home. If you use them though, try to buy them new whenever possible since you don't really have any way of knowing what was previously stored
True.
in used containers. But even if you have a substantial amount of water set aside, you may run out if a situation lasts long enough. Because of that, it's also important to have ways to collect additional water from nearby sources.
This is why I want a well on my property.
Rain barrels are one of the best options and can also be used to help you water your garden. Then you can use food grade buckets and a utility cart to retrieve water from nearby creeks, lakes, or ponds. And bathtub bladders like water bobs and aquapods can be used to quickly supplement your water storage during the opening stages of an emergency. Since they're sealed up, they're a much better option than just filling up your tub. But it's important to keep in mind that any water that you collect from natural sources or any water that comes through the tap after an event begins will need to be purified. Various bacteria, viruses, and chemicals can make you sick or even worse. Basic options like Sawyers and life straws can remove most bacteria and parasites, but they're not going to do jack against viruses or chemicals.
Facts.
Grails, reverse osmosis
I have
systems,
some
and
of
some
them ordered.
countertop filters can provide you with more comprehensive protection, but if you're dealing with flood water or water with a lot of sediment, it's a good idea to go ahead and pre-filter it with like a coffee filter or a clean cloth. That'll remove most of the big stuff before you run it through your main filter. Boiling is another proven method for killing off biological contaminants, but it won't do anything for chemicals or heavy metals. Then, even though these aren't my favorites, chemical disinfectants like purification tablets and regular disinfecting bleach can be effective against bacteria and viruses. The main downside to these is that some, like bleach, have a very short shelf life, and in the case of disinfecting tablets, you're going to need a lot of them to get through a longer term situation.
Facts.
So, because of that, I see them as backups that we should all at least know how to use. But if there's one thing that you notice real quick during a disaster, it's how fast modern life falls apart when the power goes out. And it doesn't matter if it's a hurricane, ice storm, or a cyber attack. All the tech that we rely on to make our everyday lives possible could very well turn into paperweights. That's why stockpiling fuel and backup energy sources in 2026 is so important. First up, there's gasoline and diesel. They're the backbone of most emergency plans because they keep vehicles and generators running. If you ever have to evacuate, having even just a few extra gallons of stabilized gas on hand could be the difference
Facts.
between getting out quick, getting stuck in a long line at the gas pump, or not being able to get out at all.
Another thing though is gas goes bad over a year if it has ethanol in it. So if you get non-ethanol gas, it'll stay longer, and then you can put the gas stabilizer in there too and make it last longer. But that's why I went and got a propane generator, because propane doesn't go bad, and you can get a huge propane tank and have that as your backup, and have a couple extra big propane tanks as your backup instead of gas. And I feel like that's for generators and shit around your house. It's still nice to have extra gas around for your cars and shit, but
Gas is also what keeps most portable generators running, and when the grid goes down, that generator might be the only thing keeping your fridge cold or your well pump running. Diesel stores a little longer than gasoline and is of course what you need if you have diesel vehicles, a tractor, or a diesel generator. Just remember though that both fuels need to be rotated and should be treated with stabilizers, and you should always store them in proper containers and in a safe location. But when it comes to different types of gasoline, ethanol-free gas has a longer shelf life and is better for small engines.
okay.
Next up, there's propane and butane, and I'm a huge fan of propane
Wow.
since it doesn't degrade over time. That makes
Okay, he's getting I see, I'm just now learning this stuff. I'm just now getting into kind of getting prepared for prepping, and he's talking about stuff I've already learned. So this is kind of cool to watch.
It's ideal for both short and long-term storage. You can use standard barbecue grill tanks for everything from cooking to heating and even some generators. If you have a propane camp stove or a buddy heater, a couple of spare tanks can mean hot meals and a warm room when the grid's down. Then butane's good for smaller camp stove and is a little safer to use indoors as long as you're smart with how you use it and have plenty of ventilation. Of course, if your home has natural gas utilities, then you're a step ahead
Mine
for
does. I have propane. All my stuff's ran on propane in my house. My stove, my furnace, everything's ran on propane. As long as I have a lighter and can light it, I'm good to go.
a lot of situations, but just don't count on it still being there if there's an earthquake or other widespread
Of
disaster.
course.
Always have a backup plan that isn't dependent on outside resources. If you have a wood stove or a wood burning fireplace, then having a good stash of firewood
Which is another thing I'm getting. I'm getting a wood stove for inside my house and a wood stove for inside my shed just as backups.
could be a lifesaver. It can help you stay warm, cook food, and even boil water for drinking or hygiene if you need to. The trick is, though, to have it seasoned and stacked well before the first freeze. You don't want to wait until the local news says a blizzard's on the way, because when that happens, everybody's going to be out and getting as much as they can.
Facts.
Then don't overlook alcohol fuels like denatured alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, or even small cans of sterno. They work well for small backpacking stoves and are safe to store, easy to ignite, and can get you through
Okay.
short-term cooking needs when other fuels aren't available.
I got one challenge for you. Try Whisper Flow once, one time, and I promise you'll understand why I.
But even if you think that you have plenty of fuel, you could eventually run out. That's why
See, I have one of these that's in my thing, and then I have a regular generator that I'm getting ready to buy too.
always recommend having some sort of solar power system, and these have come a long way over the past few years. They're an excellent option for keeping lights, radios, fans, and small appliances running pretty much indefinitely. They
And then
can
I also have a solar charger pad coming for phones and flashlights and stuff like that with chargers and shit on it for phones.
also help your fuel storage last longer and won't draw nearly as much attention to you as a loud fuel-based generator will. When it comes to batteries, if you have a solar generator, I'd recommend investing in rechargeable variants whenever possible, but if you don't have one, investing in cheaper one-use alkalines is probably a better idea. Then another thing we should be stockpiling in 2026 is medications. I'm sure that we all remember how difficult it was to find even basic over-the-counter meds during the spring of 2020, and there are plenty of reasons why we could experience shortages again, even if they're just isolated to particular areas. First, we've seen measles outbreaks in different parts of the country, and the threat of bird flu becoming transmissible from person to person has been a concern for years. But even local natural disasters can cause pharmacies to close and roads to be blocked, and in any of those situations, you need to be prepared to deal with as many illnesses and injuries as possible,
Facts.
at least until you can get to real help. While a basic first aid kit is fine for a scraped knee, you still want to think a little bigger. Stock up on bandages like gauze pads, elastic wraps, medical tape, and a healthy pile of regular adhesive bandages in all sizes. Those are what you'll need for protecting everything from blisters to deep cuts. Add antiseptics like povidone iodine, isopropyl alcohol, and hydrogen peroxide, along with some antibiotic ointments and alcohol prep pads. Those can help keep small wounds from turning into big infected nightmares. Also include more advanced items like trauma dressings, tourniquets, and some burn cream or gel. These will help you at least slow down or stabilize a more serious situation until you can get to proper help. Pain relievers like acetaminophen and ibuprofen don't just cut fevers. They make sprains, headaches, and general misery a lot more bearable.
Facts. Facts.
Allergy meds will be a lifesaver if you have bad reactions to dust, pollen, or some types of food. And antidiarrheal and antacid tablets mean that you don't have to suffer if your stomach rebels from food maybe that you didn't eat as much as you should have, even though we tell you to store what you eat, or questionable water. Pepto, in addition to controlling symptoms, can also help reduce harmful pathogens in your gut, but it shouldn't be given to anyone under the age of 16. Also be sure to have a thermometer, the old school kind that doesn't need batteries, and some electrolyte packets. Those can make a world of difference when it comes to helping you stay hydrated. If you or a family member relies on daily medications like blood pressure pills, insulin, or inhalers, do whatever you can to get an extra month or two supply of those. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist about your situation, or consider ordering an emergency supply from a company like Jace Medical. You want to rotate those out just like food, using the oldest first so that nothing expires. For folks with glasses or contacts, keep a spare pair on hand and enough solution to get you through a few months. When it comes to glasses, you can even order them online. Just be sure to keep your prescription card so you know how to fill out the order form. I just did that myself. I went online, entered my numbers, and ordered some glasses, and it was pretty cheap too. I think it was like less than $30 with shipping and everything. Then the same goes for dental needs. Stash some extra floss, toothbrushes, toothpaste, and maybe even a DIY dental repair kit for fillings or crowns that pop out at the worst possible time. But when dealing with medical situations, it's really important to do what you can to prevent infections to wounds and reduce the chances of an illness spreading.
Facts,
Latex or
facts,
natural
facts.
gloves are useful for treating wounds, either yours or someone else's, and also keeping everything clean. Then the same goes for respirators. N95s are decent, but I prefer to have P100s on hand since they remove a lot more contaminants.
Yeah, I got gas mask and everything in my carts ready to go.
They'll provide at least some protection from biological stuff, and they are also useful against wildfire smoke, cleaning mold, or dealing with any kind of dust or debris after storms. Then also throw in some hand sanitizer and disinfectant wipes. They're as valuable as gold if your water supply is tight or if you just want to keep germs from spreading through the house when someone gets sick. But when it comes to illnesses and injuries, the old phrase, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, is very applicable. And if you can keep your house clean and at least somewhat tidy during a disaster, you'll have a lot less of a chance of accidental injuries or illnesses spreading uncontrollably. That's why it's important to stockpile hygiene and sanitation supplies in 2026 as well. So let's start with the obvious, toilet paper. Everyone jokes about panic buying, but if you've ever had to improvise for more than a day or two, you know how quickly you and your hind end starts to miss toilet paper.
Yeah,
Stockpiling it, paper towels, and facial tissue isn't just about a luxury, it's about staying comfortable, clean, and sane. Store enough to last at least a month or two, rotating through your supply to avoid it picking up moisture. Considering that most people store those items near showers and sinks, it actually can become a real problem.
facts,
Also,
facts.
don't forget garbage bags, more specifically, heavy-duty contractor bags. If trash pickup stops, you'll need a way to safely store or dispose of waste, and these will
Well,
do a much better
that's
job of
another thing. Living in the country, I would just start a burn. Like I have a fire pit. I would just start burning trash.
containing it than thinner, less expensive options. In a pinch, they can also double as makeshift toilet liners, emergency rain ponchos, or even a ground cloth. Then soap is one of the cheapest and most important preps. Bar soap, liquid hand soap, dish soap, and laundry detergent are all vital for keeping yourself, your clothes, and your eating utensils clean. They're some of the most important things you can invest in to prevent foodborne illnesses, contagions, and infections to small wounds. Disinfectants like bleach, hydrogen peroxide, and sanitizing wipes are very important for cleaning surfaces and helping keep viruses and bacteria in check if someone gets sick. Wet wipes will be especially important if you're rationing water or cleaning up after kids. And also don't forget about feminine hygiene products, diapers, and incontinence
See,
supplies
I
for
don't got to think
anyone in
about
your
none
home
of
who
stuff like
needs them.
this.
These items can disappear fast in a crisis and are absolutely non-negotiable for quality of life and health. Store a mix of disposable and reusable options if you want a backup plan that isn't dependent on supply chains.
Yeah, see, this is where our grandparents and shit didn't have to worry because they made all of our own diapers and they used the, you know what I mean, and didn't buy that stuff. We washed it and reused it.
From day one, $1, earn ATM.
Then, baby wipes aren't just for babies. They're also a great solution for staying clean when you're rationing water. Sponge bathing with wipes can help prevent rashes and infections, and they can also easily fit in a bug-out bag. Then it's also important to go beyond the basics, because if you can't fix things when they break, get a fire going, or see after dark, then life is going to get a lot harder.
Yes.
And that's where having the right tools and survival gear really pays off. First, we have lighting, and this isn't just about convenience. Headlamps are a must-have when it comes to keeping your hands free so you can cook, work, or patch up an injury without having to fumble around with a flashlight. Lanterns provide area lighting for whole rooms or group spaces, and backup flashlights mean that you're never caught searching in the dark. Then
Solar lights, stuff like that, all necessary.
Sturdy multi-tool is also important too, and you don't have to have like 30 of these or anything ridiculous like that. Just get 1 or 2 really good ones for your main kits and then keep some less expensive but still decent versions elsewhere. But beyond that, every home should have a basic toolkit as well. It should include things like a hammer, some screwdrivers, duct tape, a crescent wrench, hand saws,
All
and zip
got I
ties.
got all that
Those will
stuff
let you make
already.
repairs like patching a leak, boarding up windows, and cutting down branches if you need to. Duct tape and plastic sheeting are critical for quickly sealing broken windows, making a quarantine space during an outbreak, or even creating a makeshift rain cover or ground cloth. Paracord and rope have a ton of uses, including tying down tarps, making clotheslines, or securing gear for transport. Then you also want to have multiple ways to light a fire, so stock up on lighters, waterproof matches, and ferro rods for cooking. A portable camp stove or small rocket stove can let you boil water, cook meals, and keep everyone fed when the kitchen's done poop the bed. Have pots, pans, and utensils that work on both electric and open flame sources. Cast iron's great for this, while lightweight mess kits work in bug-out bags. And then don't forget a manual can opener. I recommend having at least one hand crank style version and several extras like P38s or the
Yeah, I have 2 manual can openers. I don't have nothing like this, but you can always open a can with a knife too.
on multi-tools. After that, tarps are incredibly versatile. They can be used to patch a leaky roof, block wind, or as a makeshift rain catch. Smaller blankets weigh next to nothing, fit in your pocket, and trap heat well, so they're a good choice for shelter, emergency warmth, or even signaling for help. Now, I know that this is a lot to keep track of, so if you want to see the first $1,000 that a new prepper Today we're going to be talking about the first $1,000 that a new prepper should spend. The purpose of this isn't necessarily going to be so that you can survive out in the woods like Rambo in some sort of Red Dawn situation. This is going to be more or less most of the stuff that you would need to shelter in place for maybe, say, around a month or so. You would have most of your food needs taken care of, a lot of your water needs. You'd be able to keep some lights on, and you would also be able to cook and do some other stuff. And y'all, I know that $1,000 is a lot of money, obviously, but people might have tax returns coming up, and also it could just be kind of a good educational thing to give you some ideas to work towards. And one of the first things that people should do is go out and buy at least $100 of shelf-stable food. And the idea here is to get as much food as you can for as little money as possible.
Facts.
You're not really going to be going out and buying any freeze-dried meals or anything like that because they're around $10 a pop now. Your focus here should be on things like dried beans, dried rice, peas, also maybe some powdered milk, different kinds of vegetable oil, also salt, sugar, things that are going to have a fairly long shelf life for the most part, and they're going to be easy to store. You might also want to throw some canned goods in there, especially things that have different kinds of meat in them. If you're storing pasta, maybe get some pasta sauce that already has meat in it. But the bottom line is you just need something that you can eat on, because while yes, most human beings, unless they have some sort of health problem, can survive around a month without food, you're going to start to degrade
Very
mentally and
quickly.
physically much sooner than that. So I think having food is a very good place to start. The next thing that I recommend new preppers pick up is 3 aquatainers. These are around $20 each, so if you get 3,
See, I have 2 big ones coming that hold 50 gallons each, not these little ones. And then I also am getting 3 big ass rain jugs that are for outside. So, but that's more for fresh water for outside to water gardens and stuff like that also.
that's going to be about $60. The thing that I like about these water containers versus others is that they're very easy to use around the house. They all come with a nice spigot on them that stores inside of it when not in use, and you can use that to dispense water into a cup for drinking, but also you could set it on your counter over the edge of your sink, use it for washing your hands, washing dishes, also doing other things like maybe brushing your teeth. And if you're short on water, of course you want to be careful with, the things that you do with that water, but having that spigot makes those tasks a lot easier. And while they aren't necessarily the most durable water containers on the market, as long as you're just using it around the house, you're relatively careful with it, then you're not going to have any problems. You can also take them camping, just don't drop them off of anything or try to punt them. Each one holds around 7 gallons of water, so if you have 3 of them, that's 21 gallons. And if you follow the 1 gallon of water per person per day rule, that's enough for one person for around 3 weeks. Now, if you live in a hotter climate, then of course you're going to need more.
Which
If
I feel like that's a lot of water. A gallon of water a day?
you supplement that with some bottled water that you rotate through, like what me and my family does, then it wouldn't be too terribly hard to make that last around a month for one
No,
person.
not at all.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 40.
The next thing that I would recommend new preppers do is build a gravity filter. And to do this, you're going to need a Sawyer tap water filter, a food grade plastic bucket, and then also a spigot kit. All that's going to run you probably around $60 or so. If you want to increase its effectiveness and extend the life of that filter, then you can throw a pillowcase in there also to act as a pre-filter. But that setup will remove things like sediment, microplastics, and also bacteria and protozoa from your water. If you need to remove viruses, then you're either going to need to use something like bleach or boil the water, and we're going to cover how to boil water in just a second. But if you live in an urban area or a more rural area where there's a lot of large-scale agriculture where there's a lot of pesticides being used, then you're going to need some type of activated charcoal filter kind of as a second stage to remove those additional contaminants.
Okay.
When it comes to cooking, the first thing that I recommend most people pick up is a butane stove. These are nice because they're pretty inexpensive. You can find them on the low end for around $25. If you want to spend a little bit more money and get one that can...
See, I'm getting me a nice wood stove for my house and my garage just as backups. But then I also already have a propane stove and everything too.
use both butane and propane. Those cost a little bit more. I think they're around somewhere between $40 and $60. I can't remember exactly how much. But regardless of the kind of stove that you get, it's always a good idea to have at least 10 bottles or cans of fuel. When it comes to butane, you can get those cans for around $4 each, just depending on where you're shopping. So that'll be around $40 if you're getting butane. But the good thing about a butane stove specifically is that it's pretty safe to use indoors. Now, of course, you want to take basic precautions, like crack a window, have a carbon monoxide alarm nearby that's battery powered, but they're safe, and also you'll be able to cook anything on them that you would on your normal stovetop. So you'll be able to boil water, you'll be able to heat stuff up, you can even do other things like brown meat or cook pasta. You can do pretty much anything you want to do with them. And then for more long-term grid down situations, I recommend people pick up something like a rocket stove. The one that I have is the EcoZoom Versa. You can pick it up for around $160, although there are some cheaper clones out there that I think are around $130. You can also get the welded metal pipe versions for about half of that. You can get them for around $70 or so. But the thing about a rocket stove is that you can use natural materials. The Versa that I have, it's large enough that you can stick larger pots and skillets on there, so that'll allow you to boil large quantities of water, cook pretty much anything that you would on your stovetop, although you're not going to have as good of a temperature control on it. So if you're trying to do a skillet steak, you might burn it a little bit if you're not careful. Yeah. But what I like about commercially manufactured rocket stoves versus things like, you know, the cinder block or brick stove is that they will last for quite a while. The one that I have, the Versa, it can last up to 5 years if used daily, longer than that if you use it sporadically. But some materials, like certain cinder blocks and certain bricks, they might not be designed to withstand high temperatures on an ongoing basis. So you might start to have some structural integrity issues with those. And the last thing that you want is to be boiling a large pot of water and then your stove fall apart and send that water flying everywhere. Yeah. The next thing that I recommend people pick up is a way to generate power. And solar is a good option for this. You can pick up a small power station and a set of panels for around $450 if you get them on sale. And a solar generator of that size, it's not going to be able to keep large things like refrigerators or box freezers running. It's just not designed for that. But you can use them for things like keeping at least some lights on, recharging different kinds of batteries, like your cell phone. Even though you might not be making calls in certain situations, it might be nice to have like certain references on there, or be able to have access to your pictures. Also, you'll be able to charge up flashlights. If you have cordless power tools, you'll be able to
Yeah.
charge those batteries to make repairs or to build fortifications, because it's going to be a lot quicker than using egg beater drills and hand saws. And you can also use them to recharge other batteries like AA's, AAA's, and D cells. Like I use those in my motion sensors that I have near my house. And solar is a very good option if you're concerned about longer term situations, because you're not going to have to store fuel for them. Now, if you want a gas powered option, there are things available.
And that's another thing that I have coming is a gas powered generator, but mine's also propane powered generator. This one is gas and propane, and propane has a long shelf life. Like it doesn't go bad, and you could store a lot more of it pretty easy compared to gas.
For around the $450 mark. But the thing with that is you got to consider how much fuel are you going to be able to store, because gas cans themselves aren't cheap. And if you get a gas only generator, which is what most of the more inexpensive ones tend to be, then you're going to have to either get fuel stabilizer or rotate that gas fairly regularly. And even if you do use fuel stabilizer, you're still going to need to keep track of how old that gas is. And then after you have a way to generate or collect power, I recommend that people pick up some rechargeable batteries for whatever devices you have. I have stuff that uses AA's and AAA's, and you can find a nice little kit that has those and a charger for around 40 bucks or so, give or take. And if you have things like this lantern that uses D cells, then you want to pick up some of those. And some of y'all are probably at least a little bit irritated that I haven't mentioned defense yet. And the big reason for that is that by the time that you spend the money on something decent like a G19 or an M&P Shield, or on the other side of things like a M&P Sport, by the time that you pay for that, plus the ammo that you would need to train on it, get familiar with it, and then also set aside for a rainy day training that you would need to pay for if you've never used anything like that before, and also range.
Growing up in the country, we got all that shit around, man. Crossbows, everything to go hunting. You know what I mean? Like that ain't nothing. Like fishing poles, everything to go fishing, get food like that too. Yeah. Traps, animal traps, everything.
Fees, cleaning supplies, this, that, and the other, that alone could cost $1,000. If you're in a situation where you don't have any of that yet, then yeah, it might be worth foregoing something like the solar generator to pick up something so you can at least defend yourself. Videos like this, they're only meant to be a guide. Always do what's best for you in your particular situation. Use your best judgment. Now, if you have followed everything to a T so far, you probably have some money left over. Like, I think it was around 70 bucks or so. With that, you can do things like maybe pick up some items for your EDC. Maybe if you don't have like a folding knife or multi-tool yet, go and pick up a reasonably priced option. Also, if you don't
My Amazon cart, and not just my Amazon cart, but everything that I want to get over the amount of time to get set up, get my property set up, is probably going to cost me $5,000 to $10,000. But that's over the next few years, hopefully, to get my whole property set up the way I want it set up, to where like I don't have to worry about it. I'll
have an EDC flashlight, go ahead and get you something small and decent, something like a Coast flashlight. You could also go ahead and pick up some basic tools if you don't have them. Things like hammers, screwdrivers, hand saws. Also, something like an old manual powered...
Good then, better now. 6 health essentials in every bowl.
This may be the last ad you ever see. Because with the free ad block extension from
egg beater style drill might not be a bad idea. That way you can make the repairs that you need to do, build fortifications, whatever the case may be. You can also pick up things like buckets, totes, and tarps, which have a ton of different uses. Buckets and totes can be used to store survival gear. And I mentioned this a lot, but if you don't have a rainwater catchment system, you can use tarps and totes to collect rainwater. Another good option might be an emergency radio that has a rechargeable battery that you can power either from some sort of USB connection, hand crank, or solar. Then also maybe a nice LED lantern like this one. And some of y'all are probably concerned about outdoor survival and bushcraft skills. And in that case, you can pick up something like a Mora, a Fiskars hatchet, and then a decent folding saw. And that's going to give you a very good kind of just basic outdoor survival toolkit. And it might also be a good idea to spend some of that money on some more mundane items like toilet paper and other cleaning supplies. In the case of sanitizing wipes, you can use those to clean surfaces so that you don't have to dip into your water storage for cleaning tasks. Other ways to save water is to just use things like paper plates, paper bowls, plasticware instead of something that you're going to have to clean every time that you use it. Cleaning really does use a whole lot of water.
Facts,
And of
facts.
course, other things like trash bags, you don't want to run out of those right when something goes down, and pesticides to keep bugs out of your house and also off of you. You probably also want to have some medications set aside. Like I've done videos on different kinds of over-the-counter medications you should be storing, but basically it just comes down to over-the-counter pain relievers, fever reducers, also things to deal with different kinds of stomach illnesses, along with things like Pedialyte to replenish any fluids that you lose while you're sick. And having medications on hand is especially important if you have small children, because they can't use all the kinds of medications that we do. They require specific types and specific dosages. And if something goes down, there's a very good chance that those specific medications are going to be bought up very quickly. And like I said, y'all, I know that $1,000 is a lot of money to spend on preps. So if you want to see the first $100 that a new prepper should spend,
Facts. Man, that's a good start to get into this so far, man. Let me know what y'all think so far. Are you guys worried about shit? Are you guys stocking up on stuff? I know this is a little different than what I normally watch and normally talk about on my channel, but let me know what y'all think below, man. It's still alive, checking out. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Peace out, y'all.